Yes, I started at the festival in 1989, so this will be my 20th festival. I've often told the story that my very first week at the festival, the then director Paul Burns headed off for a documentary film festival in East Berlin, and he'd been gone a week, and he rang at some strange hour of the morning to say that the wall had just gone down. Basically, the programmes manager works with Claire, the festival director, to select films for the festival, and in the process of selecting them, that's actually doing the research about what's out there and getting copies of those or going and seeing those, and then actually securing them for the film festival, making sure they actually get here and on the screen. Particularly documentary. I just love kind of real storytelling. And while I also watch features, that my first love is probably documentary. The festival has changed its structure slightly from year to year, from decade to decade, I suppose you could say. At the heart of it, feature films, and still predominantly on 35mm, have been the real core, and the documentaries that kind of perhaps are about creatives or about political issues are still in that mix. Around the edges, certainly things have changed, where now we screen off HD cam or digibeta. That was unheard of even 10 years ago. But the stories are still the same. The film festival has, been going since 1954, and even when you go back to those very early little battered programs, they have always shown documentaries, and they've always been given an equal status to features. We're one of the few places in Sydney, in New South Wales, indeed in Australia, that shows documentaries on a big screen. You get a smattering at the cinema, not that many. That's very important for Australian filmmakers, to see their films on the big screen with an audience. And internationally, we have a very good reputation for showing documentaries. And also the Australian documentaries we show get an opportunity to be reviewed, or to actually get a buzz around them, potentially for them to sell overseas. In the last decade, obviously, the ability of people to make pick up a camera, edit on your computer at home, has changed the way people can make films. And there was very much a kind of rise in that possibility, the personal video diary, the personal documentary. That seems to me have mellowed out into people wanting to put a bit more meat on those bones now. And so there's been just a drift back into the more cinematic documentary, I think. The festival had the Dendy Awards for Australian documentaries since, I think, 1970, and that was open to short films, fiction, animation and documentary, but it was always documentary under an hour in length. And we'd long felt that you really needed to be open to any length and any possibility. So we were really happy when last year Foxtel came on board to sponsor the awards, so that we could literally open the doors and say whatever documentaries made in Australia is now eligible. And indeed there were 2 winners last year, and Foxtel doubled the prize money because the jury couldn't decide between 2 very good films, which was Contact and A Good Man. This year we've ended up with 9 documentaries. I think they're a really fascinating range, because we have stories both from home, from Tasmania, Drive, which is about young men and their cars and speed, and the impact of that on their families and communities.
My best friend, blood curdling scream.
I was trying to go Rotting Hill and get out of my house, and that was the last time I ever seen it.
They're going to give me medication, I think. It's going to calm me down a bit.
But then we also have from near neighbours, like Strange Birds in Paradise, which is a story of a filmmaker's kind of uncovering West Papua, its history, its culture and its music.
We're going to tell you a story of a wonderful musical tradition, an ancient culture and a nightmare in the modern world. I'm trying to walk away from the Western world. This is as far as I can go. When word spreads that they can speak to me, people open up with stories. guarded whispers of missing sons, murdered husbands, villages burnt to the ground.
There are actually 41 documentaries in this year's festival, and we have a whole range from award winners like Boutros, which is perhaps one of my favourites, which is set on the West Bank, a village that is just about to be surrounded basically by the wall that's going up between Israel and the occupied territories, and they decide to fight a non-violent campaign to change the path of the wall so that they're not separated from their olive groves, which have been their sustenance for centuries. Really fascinating how both sides of the argument come together to sort of try and change the Israelis' view of where that wall should go. Well, there are also documentaries that are by well-known filmmakers, and perhaps one of my, again, a personal favourite, is Frederick Wiseman, who's in his 80th year, and his film La Danse, which follows the Paris Opera Ballet. As with all Wiseman's documentaries, he's the invisible man. I'm always astounded that you never get a sense of him as a filmmaker in the film. And especially, it must be particularly tricky with all those ballet dancers and their mirrors. He's just not there. But you watch them as they endlessly rehearse and pirouette, and just their dedication is extraordinary. It's a brilliant doc, and it's screening at the State Theatre, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that on the big screen. Ahmed Ahmed is a first-time documentary maker, and he's also a stand-up comedian. And he's coming to the festival to present his film called Just Like Us. He takes a team of American stand-up comedians, some of whom have Arabic backgrounds, to the Middle East to do comedy routines in Lebanon and Abu Dhabi. And of course they all say the wrong things, and they all ask the wrong questions, but they learn a whole lot about the different cultures on the way, both the audience and the comedians. And Ahmed will be doing an intro and a Q&A to his film.
People in the West, man, they always try to categorize us, put us all together. A lot of people come up to me and they're like, "Oh man, hey, where are you from?" I go, "I'm from Egypt." "Really? I got a friend from India."
You don't even understand basic joke construction.
So long as our relationship is defined by our differences, we will empower those who sow hatred rather than peace.
The Most Dangerous Man in America is the story of Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, and Judith Ehrlich, the director of the film, which was an Academy Award nomination, is going to be here to both present her film, which is a fascinating story, and also to present the Macpherson Lecture, which is going to look at the impact of war on documentary. There's some music docos we're showing too, and Julian Temple with Oil City Confidential. He's long been one of my favourite documentarians, and he goes to Canvey Island, which is the mud island in the Thames, to interview the Dr. Feelgood team and to learn about their history. Remarkable, very funny, very, very beautiful looking doc too. He does a lot of little tweaks with images projected on gas tanks and animation.
Dr. Feelgood was just like a machine.
Wilco really looked psycho.
There's also Lemmy, which is the documentary about the lead of Motorhead in his very large cowboy boots, and a very funny documentary. He's a quite remarkable character who has a lot of stories about the music industry that are worth listening to. For me, a film festival is about offering people a whole range of experiences, something that embraces you, entertains you, enthralls you, and informs you. It's got to have a resonance, it's got to be compelling, but it doesn't have to be serious. I've got a sense of humour, and I think most of our audience does too. So it offers a kind of a window on the world's a bit corny, but it really does give you a sense of what people with creative minds, creative souls are kind of talking about, thinking about, the kind of stories they want to tell.